but it's going to be a year and a half from now. And they're telling me to tell you that you're going to be driving the car and that you will have a woman in the front seat and a man in the back seat. And they will see to it that you have a woman in the front and a man in the back. And the reason why is because they want both a woman and a man to be a witness to what's going to happen. But the event is for you, not for them. But they want two witnesses. But they want a woman and a man to be a witness. But it's for you. Your friends are going to show themselves to you. Year and a half. And that's it. Well, you left. And a year and a half later, I was speaking in Mesquite, Nevada, at a big UFO conference for Bob Brown. And that was in Mesquite, which is like 60 miles northeast of Las Vegas. And I had brought with me my lady friend from Hawaii, who was a talk show host from Hawaii, Ivy West, and my publisher friend who was living in San Diego, where I was at the time too, my publisher friend, Paul Tice. And so Paul was in the back seat and Ivy's in the front seat, and I'm driving. And we're coming back from Mesquite Sunday morning early, and just as we're getting into Las Vegas, I said, out of nowhere, I said, have either one of you ever been to Area 51? They said, no. You want to go? I said, yeah, let's do. Well, I had been given an invitation to go to the Little Alien by Joe and Pat Travis, who owned the Little Alien, because they used to hear me on my show. I used to do a radio show, a late night talk show in Las Vegas. And so they would hear me. So they used to call me and say, come up as our guest, come up and visit. And so I never did. But so we decided, okay, we'll go. So I called them, and they said, yeah, come on up. So on the way up, it's 135 miles north of Las Vegas in the high desert of Nevada. It's a little Mickey Mouse, and I do mean small, little establishment out there in the middle of nowhere. And it's actually just a big restaurant bar, and then there's about 6 or 8 mobile homes which are rented out the rooms like a motel, but they're little mobile homes. They rent them out like a motel. And then there's a mom and pop grocery store and a little service station, and that's it. You know. And it's called Rachel, Nevada. And so, and across about a mile or so to the mountain, on the other side of the mountain is the military base, Nellis Air Force Test Range, and very highly secret stuff going on out there. So anyway, we're driving up, and so I told Ivy and Paul about the prophecy, and I said, here it is, and exactly a year and a half later, and he said I'd be driving on a woman in the front seat and a man in the back. So I said, don't be surprised if, something happens to us. I don't know. So I'm glad I told them before it happened. So we get up there, and that night we're sitting around at the bar and talking, and so when they were getting ready to close, I asked Joe and Pat, the owners, I said, where did we go to see UFOs? Because it's a very famous place, Area 51 for UFOs. So Joe said, Joe's with his cold humor, he said, you don't have to go anywhere. They saw you. He said, just sit out here in the car. They'll find you if they want you. And so Pat said, well, if you want to go where all the tourists go back out on the highway. And this is out, a highway out in the middle of nowhere. This little Mickey Mouse place out there. And so she said, go back out on the highway and go back toward Vegas, exactly 19 miles. Put it on your speedometer, exactly 19 miles. Because at the 19-mile marker, you will see a big mailbox and a big parking area and a road. Park at the mailbox. And there was one of the flight paths is over the mountain right there. So anything coming in or going out is going to go over your head. So if you're going to see something, most likely that's where it will be. So go back to the mailbox. So we get in the car, I'm driving, a woman in the front seat and a man in the back, and I get out on the highway, and instead of turning right, which she just said, to go south, I turn north. turn left and go north. Ivy didn't catch it, and Paul didn't catch it. We're just talking, and we didn't realize we're going the wrong way. So we slowed down. Now it was like 11:30, 12 o'clock when we left. When we got out to the 19-mile, we were slowing down, and then Ivy says, wait a minute, we're going north. She said, go south. So I said, all right, well, why don't we just turn around and go back? We got the room for the night, and we'll go back out tomorrow night and do it right. So she said, okay, so we'll stop. Well, now it's like midnight, and it was totally overcast. You couldn't see nothing, totally overcast. And it was like midnight, and it's 20 miles north of Little Alien, which is 135 miles to start with. Now it's 155 miles out in the middle of nowhere. And so I pulled the car to a stop, and where I stopped, there was a wide dirt road going off into the desert, and it was a well-kept dirt road. And Ivy said, let's go out in the desert. Let's drive out there. And I said, Ivy, you're in the desert. You're not going to see anything out there that you wouldn't see here. And tonight, you're not going to see nothing anyway, because it's totally overcast. I don't want to go out in the desert. And Ivy insisted, and Paul, jumped in and said, let's go out in the desert a little bit. And I said, why? Go out in the desert. So I drive out in the desert. I'm driving out. I go out 2 or 3 blocks, and all of a sudden, I got this overwhelming feeling that we had done something wrong, and I was legitimately scared that we had done something wrong. And I said, Ivy, I'm getting out of here. I don't know what it is. We didn't see any sign that said stayed out. No, nothing like that. I just felt something was wrong. I stopped the car. I backed it up. And just before I took off, Ivy and Paul jumped on me and said, just stop the car. There's no signs, no bases or anything. Just stop the car, we'll get out for a minute. I said, Ivy, something is wrong, I'm feeling it. I want to get out of here, I'm serious. And she stopped the car. We'll get out for a minute. So I turned the key off. We get out, and when you shut the door and the lights are off, there's no stars, no moon, it's totally overcast, it's pitch black. No light, period. And you have to hold on to the car. I can hear voices, but you can't see anything. And it's a spooky feeling. I've never had that experience before. And in the total darkness, any light you see immediately. And so while I'm we couldn't have been out of the car 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds. And all of a sudden, the cloud opened up, like a little bit of an oval opened up. And you could see stars. Well, the moment it opened up, we all 3 saw it, because there's no light. Any light you see immediately. And Ivy said, look, the clouds are opening. And when she said that, 2 bluish-white disc-shaped things, glowing bluish-white, were absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. They came in when the clouds opened up, but when they came in, they didn't fly in. They kind of floated. They just floated in, and they floated close to the cloud above them so that the light was reflecting on the cloud above them, bluish white, and they were glowing bluish white. And as they came in, 2 of them, beautiful saucer-shaped things, very slow, and while we're watching, 5 more came in behind them. Now there's 7 bluish-white discs, and they come over us all of a sudden and stop. I was absolutely frightened. I've never seen anything as beautiful and awesome and otherworldly than 5 glowing bluish-white disc-shaped things stop over you. And instantly they change. And they would, in a quarter of a second, boom, they all changed positions. I thought, God, how'd they do that? And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 and change again, and locked. And I was shocked. I know what the you know, what the G-force for moving something that quickly. I mean, like that, and it was locked and stayed in place. And I said to Ivy, I'm getting out of here. I don't know what this is. I don't want to know. I'm scared. I want to get out of here. And I got in the car. I cranked it up. And Ivy and Paul loved it. They said, God, look what they're doing, how beautiful they are, 7 of them. And I said, get in the car, you're going to walk home, I'm leaving. And they got in the car because they knew I was serious. They rolled the window down and looked out as I flipped on the lights and took off. And when I flipped on the lights and took off, Ivy and Paul went totally berserk. Now they're both frightened, and Ivy and Paul are screaming and crying and yelling. Now she's really frightened. Now she's scared. Me, I was already scared. But now I got a woman in the front seat who's going ballistic on me, and I'm already frightened. And I'm screaming at her to shut up. And I'm driving fast. I'm speeding toward the highway, and all I could think of was I don't want to overshoot the highway, you know, and go out on the other side and crash the car. But she's yelling and screaming, and so was Paul. And I stopped the car quickly, and it was very quick, maybe 2 seconds. I just stopped the car and opened up to see what they were screaming about, and those things were right down on us, big. Still bluish white, but very big, moving all around. I was frightened to death, and I got shot to the highway. And as soon as I could see the highway coming up, I knew I was going too fast, so I hit the brake and skidded all the way up to the highway. And as I came out on the highway, the car skidded sideways. And the moment we hit the highway, all 3 of us felt totally safe again. All 3 of us felt it. We're all right now, you know, on the highway. And the saucers had gone, all 7 of them had gone back out into the desert. And I can't remember exactly how they disappeared, but I'm trying to remember, they went back out in the desert because I was so frightened, and I was, you know, with them, and the car lights were on, and we got out of the car, we stood there talking to each other, and they had gone back out into the desert and they're gone.